She saw Sheikh Hamdan cry and never told anyone until now. She kept it for years. Whatever she saw in that moment, whatever version of Sheikh Hamdan was present in the room with her, when the composure finally came apart, she kept it. Not because she was asked to keep it, not because anyone from the palace sat her down and explained the management requirements of what she had witnessed and what the consequences would be if she chose to share it. She kept it because some things are kept not out of obligation, but out of something deeper than obligation, out of the understanding that what you have been trusted to witness, even if the trust was never explicitly extended, even if the moment happened without anyone intending for it to become a moment of trust, belongs to the person it happened to. And sharing it without permission would have been a betrayal of something she was not willing to betray. So she kept it for years. And what she saw in that room on that day is the closest thing to the unmanaged, unperformed, completely private reality of Sheikh Hamdan that anyone outside his innermost circle has ever been given access to. She was not supposed to be there. That is the first detail. The moment she witnessed was not one that had been arranged to include witnesses. It was a private moment, the kind that Sheikh Hamdan almost never has, given the structural reality of a life that has very little true privacy in it. Something had aligned on that particular day in a way that left him briefly, unusually, genuinely alone, or as close to alone as he ever gets, in a space that was not prepared for his emotional reality to surface in the way it surfaced. She was there because of ordinary circumstance, a timing that nobody had planned for, a presence in the adjacent space that he was not aware of in the way he would have been aware of it if the moment had been going to be managed rather than simply lived. She heard it before she saw it. That is also a detail she has shared with the very small number of people she has eventually spoken to about this. Not a dramatic sound, not the kind of crying that announces itself loudly and requires the environment around it to respond. The quiet kind, the controlled kind that happens when a person who has spent years training themselves to contain everything in public loses the ability to contain it in a moment when they believe they are alone. The sound of someone trying to keep it quiet and not entirely succeeding. The sound of grief that has been held for too long reaching the surface despite the effort to prevent it. She recognized immediately what she was hearing, and she understood in the same moment that she recognized it that she was being given access to something she had no official right to. She did not leave. That would have required a movement that might have alerted him to her presence. She stayed where she was, as still as she could make herself, in the adjacent space, trying to occupy as little of the moment as possible, while the moment did what it needed to do around the man at the center of it. Later, she would say that the staying felt like the only respectful option, that leaving, creating the noise of departure, announcing by the act of going that she had been there and had heard, would have been more intrusive than remaining still and silent and allowing him the privacy that the moment required, even if the physical reality of her presence made that privacy not quite complete. What she eventually saw when she became visible to him in the transition back to the managed version of himself that the rest of his day required was the specific face of a person in the immediate aftermath of tears. Not distressed, not broken in any obvious way. Just for the fraction of a second before the composure fully reassembled itself, honest. More honest than she had ever seen him in any other context. The face of a man who had just let something out that had been waiting a long time for the exit. The face of a person standing on the other side of a moment of genuine, unperformed grief. And then the composure came back, as it always does, as it has always done, as it will probably always continue to do for as long as the role requires it. And the face she had seen was replaced by the one the world knows. But she had seen the other one, and she did not forget it. She never told anyone, not immediately after, not in the months that followed, not in the years during which what she had witnessed sat inside her, carried privately the way she had decided it deserved to be carried. People around her noticed, in the way that people notice when someone is holding something significant, that she had a relationship to the story of Sheikh Hamdan that was different from the ordinary relationship of an admirer or a follower. But she did not explain it, did not share the specific content of what she knew. The keeping was a form of respect that she had decided on in the moment of witnessing and had maintained through everything that came after. What eventually changed, what made the telling possible in the small, careful, indirect way that it has been told, was time and the growing understanding that the silence, which had begun as protection, had become something slightly different over the years. That keeping the moment entirely to herself had made it into something that only she could carry, and that carrying it alone, with no acknowledgement that it had happened, and no one to confirm that what she had witnessed was real and significant and worthy of being known, had become its own kind of weight. Not a weight she wanted to put down carelessly, but a weight that the sharing in the right way with the right people in a form that honored the man at the center of it rather than exposing him might make slightly more possible to carry. What she wants people to understand, having finally spoken about it, is not the detail of what she saw, not the specific circumstances or the duration or the exact content of what the moment contained. What she wants people to understand is simpler and more important than any of those details. That it happened. That the man who shows up to every event and every ceremony and every public appearance with a composure that the world has come to admire and rely on as somehow characteristic of who he is. That man has also cried in private when he believed he was alone, with the specific grief of someone who has carried more than the carrying was ever fair to require. That he is not, despite everything the public version of his life suggests, made of something different from the rest of us. He feels everything, all of it, with the same human vulnerability that the role has always required him to hide. She saw it, she kept it, and in the careful, partial, respectful way that the keeping allowed, she has now told it. Not to expose him, not to diminish the dignity that he has maintained through everything, but to tell the truth about a man that the world has been given an incomplete version of for too long. He cried, alone, in a private moment he did not know was witnessed. And the woman who witnessed it kept what she saw for years, because she understood, without being told, that some things are sacred even when they are not secret. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week I bring you the real story of Sheikh Hamdan. The moments nobody was supposed to see. The truths that were kept and are now carefully being told. And the man behind the composure that the world has always been shown and only rarely allowed to see past.